So this is your chance, folks, to ask questions of the regional manager team. There are no dumb questions. Feel free to chuck those out. You can raise your hand and chat with us verbally, or you can drop your question into the questions box. Looks like I did have someone who missed the room prize giveaway winner. That was Kelly from the Lewis Conservation District. She won that last door prize with the correct answer to the riddle of a river. So if you missed that, I did send that announcement out in the chat to everyone. Excellent. Looks like we have another question coming in to the questions box. There is an operations brief describing how district activities should not encroach private business. Some CD activities seem to be pushing that line. Any thoughts? You know, one of the key pieces of that district operations brief is to help districts think through that scenario of whether or not a district should embark on an activity or a service that might come into conflict with local private businesses. And so let's say a district chooses to do that. The plant sales were kind of the original activity that kicked off the whole conversation and generated that district operations brief. And most districts have found that balance with their local communities and local nurserymen around the plant sale. So let's say you choose to do something different. Maybe you want to provide a product or something like that. Think through who else is out there who does provide that service. Can you arrive at an arrangement with them? Is that an appropriate place for the district to go? And if you make that choice, document those reasons and that rationale for why you chose to offer that activity or offer that service, and then come back to that rationale and review it periodically. Annually is a good piece of advice. What's changed? Has anything changed out in your operating environment? Maybe there's a new producer in town, a new business in town, someone you want to readjust your activity in that area. So that would be my advice. It's really supposed to be some careful decision making on the district's part to make that decision to go down that road. And then don't just make it once and never look at it again. Come back periodically and reevaluate. So I hope that helps on that particular question there. And I saw Alyssa.
Hi, Shana.
Yep, I saw that. You pushed out the link to that district operations brief in the chat box to folks. So if that's not one you've had a chance to skim through or take a look at, I encourage you to do so, especially if you're facing an opportunity or a decision point like that. Great question. Other questions? Come on, folks, don't be shy. Raise your hand, type into the questions box. This is time for you to pitch out anything that's on your mind and chat about it with the regional manager team. Boy, we're quiet this afternoon. Maybe you all will entertain me for a moment. Oh, there's something coming into the questions box there. When will regional managers start traveling again? Great question. We are traveling on a pretty minimal basis right now and doing some activities like implementation monitoring. So when we go out and check on projects with conservation districts, we're trying to do that in a contactless fashion. So, not riding in vehicles with district staff, not shaking landowner hands, which is really hard for us to do. That's one of the favorite things about our job. But over the course of the summer, I anticipate that we'll be able to go back out more fully as we were in the past, and even getting into the fall. We're continuously reevaluating our own agency COVID protocols, just as many of you are, as new information comes out, as the guidance changes. So I'm anticipating we'll be taking another look at our own COVID protocols here in the next couple of weeks. So great question. Let me ask a question of folks that are with us. Is there a training need, a topic where you'd love to see a seminar or a webinar or a speaker come to you in the near future? It could be WADE next year. It could be a request to WACD. It could just be a standalone topic. But if there's anything on your mind that you have a burning need or real curiosity about, or feeling like there's a gap, you can put comments like that in the questions box too. Those are always helpful for us. More questions coming in. With things opening back up, we're looking at the possibility of holding our board meetings in person. Are we allowed to hold an open public meeting virtually that has a closed in-person location for the board? Let me see if I understand that one correctly. So you want to have the board meet in person, and only the board meet in person, but you want to be able to allow the public or maybe staff or others to participate virtually. What you're talking about is I think something we're going to see in really common, a hybrid meeting, and there's a lot of different conversations going on about that. Okay, thanks for that clarification. Board and staff in person, public virtually. So what it sounds like to me is that you would keep your office closed to the public for some amount of time, right? And most districts have their offices closed at some level to the public right now. So you can do that right now. But eventually, most businesses and agencies and folks are going to open back up to public visitors. And that's something you're going to have to evaluate in your district policy. How do you want to handle public visitors? It was pretty informal in the past, right? Folks just walk in your door, and when they walk in your door, you talk to them, you help them. Maybe some districts took those visits by appointment with certain staff, things like that. But that's going to be important to think about and put it down in your policy. If you make a decision that you want to only handle, public visitors by appointment, then you need to put that in your policy so you have a backstop for that decision. And then I would encourage you to reevaluate that periodically. What's working and what isn't about that. You do still have to have the open public portion of your board meetings. That's the most important. So if you're going to do that virtually for the public, you want to make sure your technology is going to support that participation, right? And that your constituents out there are able to really participate that way. Some parts of the state, the internet service is just lackluster, and that might really not be a great way to offer public participation. So there are questions there to think through as you tackle that, and possibly I would suggest kick that up for a really thorough discussion with your board about how would that work. Think it through really well before you establish something like that in your policy.
Hey, Shana, this is Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a recent experience I've had in that model. So I'm a ex officio member for our agency on the Chehalis Basin Board, and they have recently taken to voting members and certain staff meeting in person with the virtual hybrid model for public and the ex officio board members. And from what I can tell, it's been working really well. I think they've seen some feedback, just I think around being able for the public to be able to hear the audio, Those are just things to consider. So if you're, I think if you're thinking about that, and do have public that engage with your board regularly, that if there's this idea that you want to at least have some, component of a in-person meeting, just kind of maybe beforehand, just make sure the audio in the room sounds good. I think that's a little lesson learned that they've had in the 2 meetings that they have done this so far, with the voting members being in person with certain staff and then the public engaging virtually. So just a little recent experience sharing.
Thanks, Josh. Great feedback. Any other members of the RM team have really seen that hybrid model working well, or have any experiences to share there? Okay.
Yeah.
Don't forget to unmute yourself.
This is Alyssa. I've seen a few are just starting, but yeah, I would echo Josh in that just be mindful of where the speaker is, and if you're sitting right next to the speaker and something your pencil, that you might be obstructing some of the sound. So just be mindful of trying to keep the sound clear so that anyone participating virtually is able to hear everything.
Good tip. Good tip. Okay. I see another question coming in. Does the commission ever see a possibility of having a statewide IT person that can help districts? Wow, would that be amazing? It would be amazing if we had an IT person to help us. Currently, the commission's IT support is provided very graciously from the Department of Ecology staff, but we are just one then of many staff that those IT folks have to support. And if we're remote, like many regional managers are, it can be tough to really access quick IT support for us. I do think that's something that we're planning to bring on, a staff person, hopefully in this next biennium. So it's a step in the right direction towards more IT support. And once we figure out stuff for our own in-house staff and kind of get things squared away, I think there's going to be even more coordination between that person and folks with IT experience out in the district family. So I think we're headed in the right direction. I don't know if we're quite there yet, but I think we're headed in the right direction. That is a great question. I also see another one here. What changes do you envision that would make the RM team even more effective in the next 5 to 10 years? Cloning. I would like 3 of me, and I think each of my staff would also like 3 of themselves, so we could deploy them to do different things. With so many different tasks handled at the commission level, many of you are participating in different grants that we're administering, different activities going on besides our really basic regional manager support to districts. It feels like we don't have enough hands sometimes, and I think that would be my first blush at what could make us even more effective or do even more for districts would be either free up our hands from some of the things we're currently doing or give us more hands. But I'd like to punt that out to my staff too, to other team members. What would make us more effective in the next 5 to 10 years? Any thoughts or suggestions on that?
I have just one thing. With the exception of Mike and Shana, most of us are relatively new still. So I think to some extent the passage of time is going to sort of kick our effectiveness into a higher gear just by absorption rate happening and folks learning and making more connections. So there's at least a piece of that is going to happen organically, I think.
Good point, Jean. Good point.
I have a thought.
Go ahead, Mike.
I think one of the things that would help us to be more effective is just to continue to build connections and develop connections and learn more about resources that are available out there, so that we can be more effective at directing folks with questions that we may not necessarily be able to answer to people and resources that do have those answers. I think we're working on that. I think we'll continue to work on that, but with so many topics and so many challenges and things coming along that people out there face, that you all face at CDs, being able to just continue to build those connections is going to be really, really important in the future, because there's so much.
Good point, Mike. Good point. Okay, we can go ahead and move on to the next question. Let's see, what would you tell districts so we can be more self-sufficient and not use our expert RMs as holding our hands? Not use our expert RMs as holding our hands. That's a great question. What I found is, if we as the regional managers are able to teach you how to fish, or where to grab resources, where to tap for expert information, you almost become more resourceful on your own, right? You figure out that web, that network that Mike was just talking about, who to call, where to go, so that you can grab answers on your own, and maybe you don't need to ask us to help you make those connections as often. Some of that just comes with time and figuring out who those folks are, or where they're located, and what different topics you might run across. I think some of it is self-confidence too, right? Trust yourself a little bit and try on your own first. And if you feel like you're still lost, or you need a lifeline, then don't hesitate to reach out to us. That is what we're here for, and we're happy to help. I'm going to punt that question to my staff too. What would we tell districts so they can be more self-sufficient and not rely maybe so heavily on their regional manager?
Yeah, just what you said. There are sources like MRC for a lot of questions that folks often come to me for. I'll turn around and check MRC if I don't know the answer off the top of my head. And there are other sources like that. Also, you may develop a buddy system. You may have a more experienced person in your role that you can call on for certain day-to-day things that can also be a support.
Yeah, I'm still learning myself where to go for what resources. I feel like I have greatly improved in my 1.5 years here, but I know that I go to MRSC a lot, and that's something to be more effective. Like Mike said, I think having a point person at MRSC that we could just readily connect staff to, because I know for a lot of the time, for conservation district staff, a lot of times it's not that they don't know where to go, but that there's just so many plates spinning. I think it becomes a capacity thing. And yeah, I feel that just reach out with any question. And if it's just simply because you're so overwhelmed and busy, you don't have the time to figure out where to go to find that answer, maybe it is simply us connecting you to that resource, but always happy to do that.
Thanks, Alyssa. Any other thoughts on that question? All right. There are a few comments coming in to the questions box as well. Alyssa is kicking those back out to everyone so you all can see those. is there any support from the regional managers or anyone at the commission that you're not receiving now that you'd like to in the future? Just drop any thoughts along those lines in the questions box. We'll gather those up.
Hey, Shana, this is Josh. Could you repeat that? I was just reading the comments and was totally distracted with what your question was or what the question was.
Sure thing, yeah. Is there anything that you'd like to see the regional managers or other commission staff do for districts that we're not doing now, that you'd like to see us do in the future? Just drop those suggestions in the questions box and we'll gather those up. I see a question coming in. Where can we get harassment type training that will satisfy Endurus's annual question about harassment? If you were able to listen in to Joe Davis's remarks yesterday afternoon, he talked a lot about the trainings that are available through Endurus specifically. Those are free from Endurus, or MRSC periodically tackles that question as well. So I would start there with Endurus or MRSC. And then if you'd like something a little more in-depth than just those initial trainings, the local GovU that we've talked about a couple of times also covers that topic from time to time. And I think any of those would probably satisfy that question that you get from Endurus. So great question. Great suggestion coming in. Commission facilitation of board governance training would be very helpful. Great suggestion. This is something that we've started, or we just started, and then COVID hit. And it was really difficult. We couldn't go out to board meetings anymore. And oftentimes, some of those conversations are best facilitated in person. So if you're interested in something like that at your district, as we climb out of this COVID hole, reach out to your RM and we can talk about how we can help you with that. Another great suggestion, I'd like to see the commission work more with districts to streamline our administrative work and create more efficiencies, whether through new technology, processes, or shared staff. Great suggestion. We will hang on to that and we will carry that back to our fellow staff at the commission as well. Another comment, modules facilitated by Stu for board are fabulous. Thank you for that. Thank you, thank you. Also, if I remember correctly, Joe Davis said some of the Endurus trainings have a quiz and completion page, so employees can take harassment training and print a page for their manager's file. Yeah, that's an option available under local GovU. You can actually assign certain trainings through that platform to staff, and then you'll get notified when they've completed that training, and you'll get the certificate for the file. So I do encourage you to peruse through that website, local GovU, and we've put that link up a few times in prior sessions here, and take a look at what's on offer there. There's an awful lot available. More questions, more comments, more suggestions, more thoughts from all of you today. Any questions from the regional managers for this group we have with us today?
Yeah, this is Josh. I'm just curious, as we're seemingly transitioning out of COVID restrictions, how's everybody feeling? Are there folks feeling like they need more information, resources, ready to just jump back into in-person kind of? I mean, we don't know exactly what the June 30th from Governor Inslee restrictions being lifted will entirely mean. I haven't heard anything specific about whether the emergency proclamation will be lifted because that has certain things associated with it. But just generally, how are folks feeling about the transition this summer?
Thanks, Josh. We have a comment coming in response to that. I want someone to compile everyone's COVID policies so I can steal them. Great suggestion, Zora. We can sure point you to districts that we're aware of that have some great ones as examples. I'm gonna call on Jennifer Bois, who happens to be with us this afternoon. She's got some great COVID protocols over at the Palouse Conservation District, so you might take a peek over there if you're looking for things to steal.
And I don't know if Tova's on, but I was just on their board meeting last night, and just it's they're certainly thinking about this, and just looking for resources. I haven't seen anybody that's not doing great at this. If you're looking for resources, always reach out. Happy to share what I'm seeing board meeting to board meeting. But yeah, people are doing great, and I'm so encouraged by the resiliency of all these boards and the supervisors that are supporting their staff first and foremost, and obviously looking out for the public. So keep up the great work, and happy to share any resources that I'm seeing in the Southwest region.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you so much. I continue to be impressed by how districts have taken all of this in stride and just kept basically right on doing work. However you had to change your approach or put on a new piece of equipment or whatever the case may be to get the work done, you just kept right on getting it done. In frankly, an absence of great direct guidance from the powers that be, we were always cobbling together. Well, I think in this particular case, the professional services guidance is going to apply to districts. Or in this particular case, I think this piece of guidance over here is going to be more applicable. And MRSC has helped us all with that analysis as well, as all of these different things kept rolling out. But you guys have done a great job in getting through this, in keeping yourselves as healthy as possible and your staff too. So yeah, definitely take a look at your neighbor, give your neighboring district manager a call, talk things through with them. Chances are you'll pick up a tip, something new or an angle you haven't thought of yet that you can bring back to your own policies and your own COVID protocols. I did see Jennifer Bois mentioned in the questions box that she's happy to share what Palouse Conservation District is doing around that too. Other questions, comments, or suggestions from our audience today or from the regional manager team?
I had a question for the team there, for the group there. So I think I'm seeing a couple supervisors as well as staff, and of course we're at the staff training event. But we sometimes at RMs offer support to board members who are looking to learn more or fill in some blanks. I wondered if anyone on the call had noticed any areas where maybe we could provide some support to boards as they learn more. I know in Puget Sound, we have a lot of new supervisors coming on, and sometimes it takes a little while to fully get your feet under you. I just wondered if there's anything in particular that the group noticed or could think of in that regard.
Great question, Jean. Any places where we could provide more support or more training, more resources or assistance to your board? If you've got suggestions on that, drop those in the questions box or raise your hand. If you'd like to tell us verbally, that's always an option as well. So don't hesitate to share your thoughts on that. All right, I'm going to pitch out another question here to the group. We've turned it around this afternoon. If you guys don't have questions, we're going to pepper you with some as well. If you have an opinion on this, just chime in. As we move out of COVID and out of the all remote meeting environment, so we get to meet in person again, the commission is planning to meet in person at our September commission meeting. So that will be our first time, at least our plan currently, that we'll be back together in person. Something I've noticed as we've been going through COVID is a lot more of you have been able to join and listen in and even provide comments and input into our commission meetings. Would you like that remote participation option to continue? Would you make use of that if we figured out a way to make that technology work? I'm going to ask you, it's a yes or no, maybe. Put that in the questions box. It's something we're going to be grappling with, just like all of you, as we move out of COVID and you're thinking about hybrid board meetings. We're also thinking about what would that look like for the commission. So if you have an opinion there, let us know that, please, in the questions box. Okay, and then a couple more questions came in. Excellent. Laura, you've got one for us. That's awesome. Would you mind asking the group if there are communication outreach resources that they'd like to see from the commission? So that's a great question. Would you like to see any new or additional communication or outreach resources from us? If you've got suggestions or requests there, drop that in the questions box or raise your hand. If you'd like to talk that through, we will unmute you, no problem at all. Okay. Another question. It seems the commission aims for equality across districts. I realize this is a can of worms, but are there any efforts to weigh financial resources towards smaller districts that could use more assistance? I would say in response to that, there are not currently efforts to weigh or use a formula or a calculation or anything like that to direct financial resources from the commission towards districts that need more help. But I will say this, and this has been ongoing at least as far as I've been here, districts that tend to need more help, at least in my region, get more of my time. I know that's not distributing my person equally among the districts in my region, but I do tend to offer a little more of that care and feeding, hand-holding, if you will, assistance towards those districts that could use a little more help. And sometimes I find that that actually results in those districts being able to access more financial resources on their own, not necessarily from the commission, but giving them that moral support or that resource they needed to write a grant successfully or form a new partnership that results in funding. So while we're not really taking that aim at the commission in directing the financial resources that come through us in that way, by moving our time and our help as regional managers, I've seen that actually result in more financial resources coming in to those districts that could really use it. Other RMs, would that hold true for you as well?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, okay. I hope that helps answer that question a little bit. Let me see, a lot more comments coming in. That's great. Folks letting us know about hybrid commission meetings. I appreciate that. Don't forget, we're also asking for any suggestions or requests that you may have for communication and outreach resources from the commission as well. So if you have any suggestions or requests there, you can drop those in the questions box. Or if something occurs to you later on after we've wrapped up our session today, reach out to Laura Meyer or any member of that communications group. I'm sure they will bring that feedback into the conversations. This is your chance.
Shana,
yes,
this
go ahead.
is Josh. Can I just ask if we were at Sleeping Lady, maybe who I'd have to challenge for the championship title of cornhole? Is that a question I can ask here?
That's an absolutely.
I'm not going to say I'm the
totally
best, but I will take on the best.
I think we're all looking forward to April. I heard that mentioned earlier in the general session that they're looking at contracting the Sleeping Lady for April next year. So we've got less than a year to wait for that cornhole championship game, Josh, for Envirathon trivia back at the grotto, for all the things that we love to do together, to have fun and share ideas and make those connections in person. So I don't know about you, but I'm excited for next April. Oh, does anyone know who won the Envirathon title yesterday? I wasn't able to sit in on that. Anyone on the session here who knows who won the Envirathon title? Boy, raise your hand or drop that in the questions box. Oh, Ryan Bay. Ryan Bay won the Envirathon title. Congratulations, Ryan. Congratulations. Does that mean you're making rhubarb crisp for everyone? Because ever since you mentioned rhubarb crisp, I've had it on the brain, Ryan, I'll just admit.
Yeah, my understanding, if you win the Envirathon, it's like hitting a hole in one. You got to kind of deal with everybody who was there, which includes cooking or buying beers.
Oh, Ryan replies that chocolate truffles are an option. Outstanding, outstanding. Maybe we need to institute a potluck or a cook-off or something as part of our future Wade planning. That would be so much fun. Looks like update, directly from Bill Blake. Dawn gave me an update that Wade will probably be in June next year at Sleeping Lady, okay, and then April in 2023. Okay, good to know. Will confirm soon. Awesome. So still hold dates in June, folks, on your calendar next year, back in Sleeping Lady, hopefully. Thanks for that hot off the press update, Bill. And then a question came in. Let's see, does anyone have a short checklist for the new board member who has taken on the district auditor role? SAO has a handout on bank statements deserve your attention, but I don't have anything else to share with the district auditor other than this is how we do it. Right off the bat, I have a couple of suggestions. Our new recorded module on financial oversight for board members that's available on the commission's webpage. That's a great place to start for new district auditors. It's short, it's recorded, just a video to watch. And also, the state auditor's office has a couple of different short videos out on fraud detection. And those can easily be found on the state auditor's office website. Those are also really short and can help a district auditor kind of soak up that role a little bit more quickly. So I hope that helps a little bit. Other thoughts from other regional managers, how to help that new district auditor assume their role?
I was going to give the recorded module as well, Sean. I think that's a great starting spot.
Thanks, Mike. If others think of anything, don't hesitate to speak up and pitch that out. We've got another suggestion coming in here, a future option. It would sure be great if there was a way that finance staff could network together more often throughout the year to share info, experiences, and tools. Just an idea. That's a great suggestion. That's a great suggestion. Thanks for sharing that. Excellent. We got a ditto to that suggestion and also an agree. I would like to be part of that. That's great. All right. Other questions, suggestions, comments, thoughts, requests? Don't hesitate to raise your hand or drop those in the questions box. Anything from the regional manager team, anything you're curious about, you'd like to pitch out to the group with us today or ask them a question, feel free to do that as well. I see a question coming in. Can we edit the WACD directory to create a listserv for financial folks, similar to what they've done for Conservation District leadership? That's a great question, Renee. I'm going to have to punt that to WACD, though. Tom or Ryan, if you want to respond to that one, just raise your hand or feel free to use that questions box as well. We can punt that out to everyone with us this afternoon. Another a response to that idea. Oh yes, I like that idea about directory for finance staff. So it sounds like there's a couple folks interested in something like that. Tom says, I'm not sure that I understand the question, but I understand the purpose and desire. Happy to help. Tom from WACD. So maybe there's a follow-up conversation to happen there around that particular idea. All right, folks. Well, we've got 15 minutes left of our planned time this afternoon, and this is really your time. Anything you would like to ask us, any questions, any comments, any feedback, any suggestions at all, this is your chance to pick our brains, and we're happy to help if we can. Don't hesitate to reach out. Absolutely, now is your chance at the WADE conference, but your regional managers are available to you all the time, every day. So if something occurs, you know where to find us. A couple of good suggestions coming in. SAO requirements are growing and becoming even more complex. finance staff very important to each other. Great point, great point. Good question here. What's your favorite BMP? My favorite BMP. Wow, I think I'm going to let the other regional managers go first. Do you have a favorite BMP? And if so, which one is it?
I'll jump in on this one. This is Josh. Gosh, anything that influences bringing adult salmon back to open, fishable rivers that are, like of hatchery or legal origin. I love fishing, and I love seeing the work that happens that supports healthy stocks of fish in rivers and streams.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for sharing. Other RMs, do you have a favorite BMP?
This is Alyssa. I also have a BMP that serves my habits selfishly. Is the and I also used to be the wildlife conservation planner at the Okanagan. I always like the structures for wildlife. It has things like bird and bat boxes, and then small brush piles that just always seem to help enhance any project that we were working on. So I think that's my favorite, but I'm sure we'll run across others over the next few years for years to come.
Thanks, Alyssa. I think I'm going to say 590. It might be the only BMP practice code that ever sticks in my head. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that that's nutrient management. And the reason I like that one is because I get to go out and look at projects involving animals. And I have lots of pictures of me petting cows and goats and sheep and all sorts of things. So even though the practice code itself and that BMP has to do with managing manure most often, I also get to go out and see the animals and talk to the landowners about those operations. And that's a super fun part of my job. So great question. Other RMs have a favorite BMP?
Oh goodness, I don't know about favorites, but I kind of follow up with yours, Shana. I kind of like some of the creative ones on how that apply to to livestock management and such. The ways that you can use livestock to benefit the property. Things like prescribed grazing and, like you said, nutrient management or manure management. Using the animal resources to actually make a difference from what they bring just by being present. I think are kind of cool. Seeing how the rotational grazing and stuff can just make a difference in pastures and range and all that good stuff is kind of cool as well. But using those products like manure to benefit the land is also always cool. But I also just from another standpoint, I always like the BMPs such as thinning type forestry, thinning type stuff. Because you can really see what a difference a well implemented BMP can make from a fire standpoint, from a forest health standpoint, just by implementing those kinds of things.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I don't have anything nearly that virtuous. I love hoop houses because I wish I had one. I just love to see them. It's just sort of wish that was an option. Just amazing, some of the season extension that happened there.
Absolutely. I can glom onto that too, Jean. I would love some season extending high tunnel for my place. And I guess I better pitch in a pre-commercial thinning as well, because I've been engaged in that now going on 5 years on my property, and it just seems to never end. But it's something I really enjoy, working out in the forest. So I'll add that to my favorite BMP list too. Some great comments coming in to the questions box. Alyssa is kicking those back out so all of you can see those as well. A question came in: does the Commission and WACD have the capacity to help sponsor regional mini workshops to cover topics that might have more traction among sister districts in a region rather than spread across the whole state? I think we do something like this now in the form of helping to facilitate local work groups, always upon request by the local work group chairing district, but I would consider that similar to a mini workshop around local issues. So we're open to requests for assistance from things like that for our districts, and hopefully WACD is as well. So you have something like that coming up in your area and you'd like to get together with your neighboring districts and chew the fat or talk something through or come to a solution, bring that idea to your RMs or to Tom and Ryan at the WACD. Looks like we also have a number of birders with us this afternoon. I think this is a really common theme among our conservation district family. Maybe we need to start a birding Facebook group or something amongst all of us. I also enjoy birding, and the new manager at the Pine Creek Conservation District also really enjoys birding as well. If you haven't heard, I'm going to let you all know his name is Casey Louder. He is the new manager at the Pine Creek Conservation District. Wasn't able to be at some of the Wade conference this year, but if you run across his name or you see him pop up in the WACD directory soon, I encourage you to reach out and say hello. Join the welcome wagon. I love that phrase that Tom Salzer brought back into our vocabulary most recently, and offer him just a hello, and he's not alone. Because like many of you, you probably remember your first few moments in management at a district and how lonely that can sometimes feel. So Casey Louder, the new manager at the Pine Creek Conservation District.